Last Tuesday, voters in Los Angeles approved a new mansion tax, which supposedly would be used to support homelessness and affordable housing within the city by taxing homes that are worth more than $5 million. But the tax is in actuality a tax on landlords and real estate developers who own properties worth more than $5 million. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting story for you today, and it's going over a new transfer tax that was approved by voters in Los Angeles just last week during the election. Now, this story isn't getting a lot of news, and the way that they played this whole thing up was as though, hey, this is really a tax on wealthy people. That we're going after the wealthy. We can't pass a wealth tax, but we can tax these mansions when they're sold. And they're planning on taxing them quite a bit. I believe that the tax starts at like 4% of the sale price, right? And they're calling it a transfer tax. So when you transfer ownership of the property over, then this tax has to be paid, I believe, by the seller, right? But here's the problem. When they created the tax, it was for the sale of any property over the $5 million amount. And that includes commercial properties, that includes multifamily, like apartment complexes, industrial properties, etc. And this sort of law, what it will do is it will, just tack on a huge tax onto the sale or transfer of properties, which means that a lot of landlords and real estate developers, etc., one, it's going to slow down the sales of these properties because people know they're going to have to pay this tax. And for those properties that do sell, they're going to have to sell them at a higher price in order to cover that huge tax hit that they're going to face. So just to give you an example, right? And people, they always, who cares if Jeff Bezos has to, he's selling his mansion in LA for $100 million. Well, you're thinking in terms of mansions, right? What you don't realize is that, hey, there's maybe a 500 unit apartment complex that costs $100 million, right? And if that property is to be transferred to a new owner, then guess what? They have to pay a $5 million new tax on, to transfer the property over. $5 million. Okay, that is insane. Okay, that can cut profitability of the sale of a property down to nothing, just like that. I'm not saying that the properties won't be profitable if they are sold. What I am saying is that tax is outrageous, and it's unbelievable that nobody has brought up the impact this is going to have on affordable housing within the city. Because you know what? When you suddenly say that, hey, it's going to cost $5 million more in order to purchase this property just so I can pay the tax bill, guess where they're going to pass those costs on, okay? And that's on to the general consumer. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. What do you think of this new transfer tax that's been approved within the city of Los Angeles? And now, obviously, one of my biggest gripes is that they already had programs in place to raise tons of money for affordable housing, for the homelessness issue, etc., right? And I also don't like the fact that, simply put, they haven't used those funds correctly, and then they're trying to bring even more funds in, thinking that that's somehow going to help resolve the situation. I don't think so. I don't think that this is going to make the impact that people claim it will, and instead, I honestly believe that they're going to use the funds for something else, okay? Little pet projects or whatever. Their whole goal in California and in places like Los Angeles is to expand the government. Okay, they don't care about the private industry or the impacts that it has on the private industry. That's why they have laws like rent control and all these ridiculous eviction protections in place there already. So anyway, let's get into this article because I'm ranting. I haven't even gotten into this article yet. So this article is coming from laist.com, and it says, Measure ULA Results. What we know so far about LA's mansion tax initiative. Yeah, and they kind of go over a little bit better than I do what exactly this law says. So let's get into it. Los Angeles voters have approved funding measures to address homelessness in recent years, including a $1.2 billion bond measure to finance new supportive housing construction in the city and a countywide sales tax increase to fund homeless services. Now, Measure ULA is asking voters in the city of Los Angeles to pass a new tax on the sale of multi-million-dollar properties to fund affordable housing and homelessness prevention efforts. Measure ULA would implement a new tax on the sale of top dollar properties in the city. Properties that sell for more than $5 million but less than $10 million would be subject to a 4% documentary transfer tax. Anything that sells for more than $10 million would be subject to a higher 5.5% tax. So yeah, looking at that, right, and it says any property more than $5 million, right, would be subject to the this tax, right? So between 5 and 10 million, it's 4%. Anything above 10 million is going to be 5.5%. And when we're talking about, larger multifamily real estate, when we're talking about, commercial strip malls, office buildings, industrial complexes, every single one of them in Los Angeles is going to fall under this. And hell, I mean, it's going to be awful for those people when they want to sell the properties because they're going to take such a huge tax hit. Okay, that it might actually put some people upside down, especially when we're talking about, the economy's declining and some people might have to, just take these huge losses. And that's an awful situation to be put in by a government tax. Okay, we're not operating in a world where the profits are so huge that we can just, oh yeah, no problem, I'll take a $5 million or $5.5 million hit, and pay. And what are they going to do with this money? Like they mentioned earlier in the first paragraph that they already had a $1.2 billion bond measure to finance new supportive housing construction in the city. Well, you know what? I've heard that money wasn't managed very well, and I doubt that if they can't manage that 1.2 billion they already had well enough to help resolve the homeless problem, how is this new influx of cash, how is that going to truly help? I don't think it will. I think that the homelessness issue is bigger than just, trying to throw more and more money at it. And of course, people who don't own multi-million-dollar properties, they don't care. They're going to pass this. They're going to be, they're bleeding hearts. I believe that the people had good intentions, right? They just don't understand the consequences behind, when they vote for a law like this to happen. Okay, there are huge consequences, and not only is it going to create even less affordable housing, but it's going to strongly discourage people from wanting to sell their properties or even invest in Los Angeles in the first place. That's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize. Why would a developer say, hey, I'm going to build in the city of Los Angeles a new apartment complex or a new office building or whatever, when they can say, hey, I can build in the city right next to LA, or maybe in Orange County or somewhere nearby, and not have to deal with that same 5.5% transfer tax for my brand new, large office building, or for my brand new, strip entertainment mall or whatever. They're just gonna not want to deal with it. So yeah, I could see development dropping off. I could see the sales and transfer of properties dropping off, and I could see for those properties that do sell, the prices spiking and going up. And like when I talk about affordability, it's not just about the housing costs, right? When you tell me that in order to sell my strip mall, where I have, multiple large retailers inside, in order to sell that, I have to pay a 5.5% transfer tax. Guess what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to increase the cost of that so that I can, basically compensate for the fact that I'm paying this huge tax in order to transfer. And that means that the next owner is going to have to charge higher rents to all their tenants, and then their tenants in turn, be it a grocery store, be it a restaurant, whatever, are going to charge more for the goods and services that they sell. Okay? It's basically you're going to go places and things are going to cost more in Los Angeles than they do outside of Los Angeles because of these ridiculous taxes. Okay, taxes have a horrible inflationary impact on businesses, and that's what a lot of people just don't realize. Okay, it's common sense if you really think about it, but when you're appealing at people's emotional well-being. They're like, oh, I feel bad for the homeless people. I feel bad for the people who can't afford housing. So we're going to, tax those evil rich people in the mansions. And I'm like, no, it's not those people who are going to be paying this tax, okay? It's the, large landlords. It's the large real estate developers who are building, things that your city needs, who are going to be the ones who take the majority of the burden. And yeah, that's why I think this law is idiotic. I think they should have never passed it. And I don't know, I'm sure there's going to be horror stories coming out about this law going into the future.